And Charles Gamora, the actor who specialized in playing apes and other kind of simian creatures, he kind of shows up randomly too. A gorilla attacks Laurel and Hardy on a rope bridge and wrecks their piano and that sort of thing. And apparently the piano was going to be a much bigger piece of the film, but that kind of got cut down. Forgive me, there's a rainstorm going on, so bear with the rain. We're almost done for today. Boy, listen to the rhythm of that falling rain, telling me just what a fool I'd been. I wish that it would go and let me cry in vain, and let me be alone again. Or something like that. Anyway, let's get on to the subject of today's video. And welcome back again for another Gary Lewis and the Playboys album review. Here we have the subject of today, Rhythm of the Rain plus Hayride, and other songs. So, a few interesting things about this. First of all, we have talked about a couple of the songs on here before, because they were also on the previous album, Closed Cover Before Playing. So we'll re-mention those here, we won't go too in-depth on them. A couple of songs from this record would later be reused on Gary's final album, I'm on the Road Right Now. And we'll mention those and we'll talk about them again when I finally get to this, the final piece of the Gary Lewis puzzle, or LP puzzle anyway. And additionally, of course, we only have this one and the Rhythm compilation left, and we'll have covered all of Gary's LPs after today. So, pretty fun stuff there. Of course, remember, for a long time you could only get Rhythm of the Rain plus Hayride on vinyl. It was only relatively recently it was made available on a CD two-fer, along with the album we talked about in the last episode. So definitely some cool stuff there. And we'll also cover those bonus tracks on album today, some Ed Sullivan live recordings, that kind of thing, or live recordings as we'll get into. So talk a little bit about the background for this album. There's not a whole lot to say. Released in July of 1969, this album, of course, did not chart. We are long past any charting Gary Lewis LPs. Interestingly enough, this album is also skipped on Gary's official discography on his website. So somebody felt that this was not important enough to even address there. Which is a shame, because it does have some interesting things on it. Of course, the CD release is very recent. This is a very interesting record sleeve, because for the first and only time, we have no blurb, no write-up, no liner notes, nothing. Now, Gary Lewis and the Playboys' blurbs and write-ups have been all over the place. We've had some really interesting ones. Ones by people like Snuff Garrett, or Gary's father, Jerry Lewis, and his wife, Patty. Those ones, I think, tend to have a lot of information and a lot of heart in them. We've had really crappy ones, like the super generic one from Hits Again, where the author's not even listed. You know, this thing was written in 10 minutes just to get something to put on the record sleeve. And we've had some very bizarre ones from various journalists and, you know, people involved in the industry in that regard. Of course, last time, with the Closed Cover record, we saw Jim Ashton write about how genius the packaging was, and how, you know, it's such a clever package. You like the music too, but think of the package. Or Al Stoffel, who wrote the incredibly insulting, you know, Gary was so ugly and untalented as a preteen. Then he hit puberty and became hot and talented. What do you know? It's like the rudest way you could possibly tell someone they had a glow up. Of course, the More Golden Greats one is all about, this will be a collector's item someday, so you better buy it now. It's like, doesn't sound like you've loved confidence in this record, and everything in between. I mean, like I said, we've had so many different blurbs that go in all different directions. It's odd to see. Here we have nothing. So, interesting in that regard, too. Front's a nice image of Gary, though. I tried to sort of copy his look today. I don't have a neckerchief or a zip-up blue kind of jacket pullover like he does, but I think this will work. I love my cravats, as many people know. On the back, same image as we saw on the previous record. Now this has kind of an odd title to it. Rhythm of the Rain, Hayride is the title, that sort of thing. And this must have been a Liberty Records thing, because Jan and Dean had some albums like that. Like Here's Dead Man's Curve, The New Girl in School. Like that's the title of the album, named after two major songs instead of just one. Kind of strange though, and a little clunky. They probably couldn't just call it Rhythm of the Rain, because I'm sure the Cascades or other groups that did Rhythm of the Rain they probably had that title already taken, so they stuck Hayride on there. Hayride was the other kind of big single for the time. Hayride did not chart, and we'll get that to a little bit later in the video too. But odd to have two kind of songs be one title. I don't know. If you know of other records that do this, please comment them below, because that'd be kind of interesting to look at. Alright, so side one of the record, let me hold it up for you. Side one, we start off with Rhythm of the Rain. That was the single release for this album, or I should say for the previous album, Closed Cover Before Playing, and since it was the last charting single the group ever did, it seemed to be the last hit they were going to have. They stuck it on this one as well. The singles collection reminded us that the whole Rhythm of the Rain single thing was a last-minute choice. Originally, the big single for Closed Cover Before Playing was supposed to be Mr. Memory, back with their cover of Every Day I Want to Cry Some, and that was all changed up literally at the last minute, it seems, for Rhythm of the Rain to be kind of the lead single, and Mr. Memory was the B-side, and so on and so forth. Definitely some confusion. Like I said in the last video, Rhythm of the Rain's a great song. Gary's cover clones the Cascades original. It's a cover that is so close, it's almost indistinguishable, and that's a problem. A cover artist needs to put their own spin on something, I think. After that, we get a Buchanan Brothers song with Medicine Man. Medicine Man, kind of a oddball, silly sort of song. Do Medicine Man, that kind of thing. I don't know, the Buchanan Brothers, who I guess were some kind of studio, kind of novelty group, did I think a single called Medicine Man Part 1 and Part 2. This is the Part 1 sort of segment. Part 2 seemed kind of like an afterthought kind of thing. I don't know, they might have been on the same LP as opposed to being a single. I'm not really sure. If you know anything about the Buchanan Brothers, please comment it below. But Gary takes kind of just the core of the song. He doesn't do like a reprise or anything. He adapts it. It is kind of a strange song. His is a little bit longer than the Buchanan Brothers original. Strange, but it's kind of fun. And this will be the vibe we see throughout this record. Gary's going for fun stuff, silly stuff, kind of crazy stuff to show, hey, maybe Gary's a fun guy. That kind of thing. At least I think that's the idea. After that we have Good Morning Starshine. The 60s gave us so many songs with beautiful, mellifluous, complex lyrics. Things like Papa Ooh Mau Mau and Da Doo Ron Ron. And there's a song, you might have heard it. It's about a word. Let me think. Oh, bird, bird, bird. Well, the bird is the word. Bird, bird, bird. And to add on to that list, we have from the musical Hair, Good Morning Starshine, bleedy blorp, bloopy, bloopy, bloppa, bleepy, yum yum, whoa whoa, sing, 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 sing song. Now, I have never actually watched Hair, even though I've had this VHS tape for years. And Good Morning Starshine was a big hit for the musician known as Oliver. That kind of thing. He had a great success with that. It's a little too weird for me. Gary does a pretty good job. He sounds a little bit like Oliver. You can tell he's kind of taking like his arrangement, his ideas, and kind of working with them there. Again, it goes with Medicine Man as kind of a silly song, but it's not really my cup of tea. I don't know, but I guess it fits the vibe. Medicine Man together makes some sense there. And then we go for crazy in kind of a different direction. You know, I love CCR, and I almost never talk about them on here. I need to do a video on their album Mardi Gras. That's not as bad as everyone says, but left a good job in the city, working for the man every night and day. Gary does Proud Mary. Gary's version of Proud Mary isn't anything extra special. It's pretty plain, especially compared to a lot of the wonderful covers that we've had. You know, Tina Turner completely revamped the song. Leonard Nimoy does a very fun novelty cover. And I love Brian Wilson's version, which has yet to be officially released. There's several alternate mixes and bootleg demos and stuff that float around on the internet. But I love Proud Mary. It's one of my favorite CCR songs. Gary doesn't do a bad job, but he doesn't have the vocal power that someone like John Fogerty does. So it's kind of this white bread, light beer kind of cover. I left a good job in the city. Okay, I don't know if it really suits the song, but I think it's kind of kooky enough. It fits in with the previous two songs pretty well. A Sonny Curtis song, My Little Girl. Sonny Curtis wrote other songs for Gary as well. My Little Girl was an early 60s tune with the Crickets, and this sounds a lot like something Gary would have done on one of his first records. That kind of thing. Very simple song, My Little Girl, we go to the movies, kind of thing. It feels more like it belongs on something like This Diamond Ring than it does on this one, especially because, again, Gary's trying to go outside the box a little bit. We've seen with like Good Morning Starshine and stuff. Kind of odd to have a very sort of old-fashioned traditional song here all of a sudden. But Gary does a pretty good job on it. I don't know if it was intended as some kind of throwback or something like that. Someone would have bought this record in 1969 and thought it seemed really dated or kind of square. And we finish up that first side with Hayride, meet at the park, do-do-do-do-do-do. Hayride's a lot of fun. So the B-side to Hayride was a song called Gary's Groove. Gary's Groove was never used on an LP. It is on like the singles collection and stuff. It's just a short instrumental. Doesn't seem like anything too fancy. I don't think they really had any great, production ideas for it or anything like that. It was probably just a throwaway B-side. It's pretty fun, but Hayride is a lot of fun, that sort of thing. Apparently Hayride is a cover, but not by anything too recognizable. There's an Australian group called the Flying Circus, which is like a weird version of it. And there's a group called the Saturday Morning Cartoon Show that I guess had some kind of at least regional, at least moderate success with this song. But Hayride is a lot of fun. I can see why it was picked as a single. It did not catch on with the audience at the time, didn't chart. Gary doesn't really mention a whole lot in the liner notes for these. It seems like it was just kind of thrown out there, hoping someone would bite, and nobody did. But Hayride's pretty fun. And I think a solid choice for kind of the second part of the bizarre two-song title. Makes sense to me. Alright, if you flip it over, the same writers who worked on Hayride also worked on the next song, Sugar Coated Candy Love. I think it's a Gary original. It's a very kind of cloying, sentimental song. I'm not really big into that, honestly, but Gary does a pretty good job on it. Again, it kind of feels like something that he might have done maybe earlier in his career, and it does sound more heavily produced, like it maybe could have been thought of for a single. Same thing for our next song, Give Me Your Backdoor Key. And it's almost kind of like country rocker kind of tune that Gary does a really good job on. And it sounds a lot like it could have been produced as a single as well, that maybe somewhere along the line someone was considering that. But I do like it. It's a little more adult than most of the songs that Gary does too, sneaking into someone's house to make love with them in the middle of the night, that kind of thing. Not something Gary covers a whole lot, so I like that he's doing something a little more risque, a little more crazy there. And I really like Backdoor Key. Interestingly, Gary does have a co-writing credit on that. Lewis, that'd be Gary. Rosenthal, we'll talk about Arnold Rosenthal here a little bit. Boatman and Marcinko. Gary and Arnold Rosenthal also worked on the next song, Three Cheers. A much kind of sadder tune, very melancholy. A lot of songs about like, I've been away and I'm coming back, that kind of thing. And I almost wonder if it was supposed to be kind of biographical for the Playboys or for Gary, going away to serve in the army, coming back to, a somewhat tepid reception. I don't know, maybe, maybe not. But Gary did work on the writing of it, so I guess it's certainly possible. This song, I should say, Three Cheers, as well as the next song, I do believe, yep, Orangutan and Three Cheers are both on the final Gary Lewis album as well. They are mixed differently, and we'll talk about that when we get to I'm on the Road right now. But you can see they're separated, that's why it took me so long to realize. But yeah, Three Cheers is on the first side of their last album, and the next song, Orangutan, is on the flip side. So let's talk about my favorite of Gary's sort of last few tunes. Orangutans do as the children do. Isn't life so easy? An Arnold Rosenthal, presumably original. I don't think any other artists covered it. The comments on some of the YouTube posts of the song said it's from like a nature film or a kid's animal film. I can't find anything to corroborate that, though. It does sound like it could be. Orangutan is such an earworm. When I first got this record, I could not get it out of my head, but I've really come to like it. It's a fun little tune, and it kind of fits with the quirkiness that we've seen previously. The songs like Good Morning Starshine and Medicine Man and stuff. It's got that kind of goofiness to it. After Orangutan, we have C.C. Rider. We talked about C.C. Rider already. That had been on the Closed Cover Before Playing album. It was the B-side to Gary's single Main Street. Main Street didn't really catch on. It bubbled under the Hot 100. Again, we talked about C.C. Rider in the last video. Oh, C.C. Rider. I think Gary does a pretty good job on it. And last but not least, a strong closer, I think. You know, the last album was kind of weird because the song that sounds like it should have been the closer was flip-flopped with their cover of I Think They're Alone Now, and it didn't quite flow. But here we have the definite, you know, true closer song, Nothing to Be Ashamed Of. This also has kind of a Crickets, or Buddy Holly and the Crickets sort of connection as well, with Jerry Allison as one of the writers, and Sonny Curtis comes back, as does Snuff Garrett. Snuff Garrett, of course, has his logo as Snuff Garrett Production, produced by Snuff Garrett, arranged by John Baylor, and you see the little logo and stuff, in case you didn't notice it before. There it all is for you. So Snuff was also involved in the writing, so that's usually a good sign. And Nothing to Be Ashamed Of, another one of those sort of more melancholy kind of tunes there. Yeah, interesting enough, Sonny Curtis did a version of his own that he recorded as like a solo artist, but Gary does a nice job on that, and how, you know, losing someone or something you love isn't your fault. It's nothing to be ashamed of. So you got nothing to be ashamed of, do-do-do-do. It's a nice little tune there, a good closer. So all in all, I had a good time with Rhythm of the Rain / Hayride. Definitely some odd choices, but I think there are enough odd choices. I'd put this one more in like the quirky kind of territory with all the oddballs that Gary's done over the years. It's good to sort of collect some of the goofier songs there. Yeah, I wish there weren't repeats, and yeah, there are a couple things I'm not personally all that keen on, but overall, a good experience and a good album, I think. So now, for all you youngsters out there, across the US and Canada, take a look at Gary Lewis and the Playboys! So, as bonus tracks on this CD twofer, we have several Ed Sullivan Show cuts. We have, from March the 21st, 1965, I think the group's second appearance on the show, their version of This Diamond Ring. You can find the film footage for, I think, all of these, or certainly almost all of them, on YouTube very easily. This Diamond Ring is very obviously the group miming to a pre-recorded track. It sounds exactly like the studio version. Nothing, you know, particularly exciting there. Count Me In, I think, kind of the same deal. It's also from March the 21st, 1965. Not super impressed with these, because again, it's just the group. They're miming in the video, so here on the song, here on the album, excuse me, the song sounds exactly the same. It just has some crowd sounds and stuff in there. Alright, and then we have from February the 27th, 1966, Sure Gonna Miss Her. Sure Gonna Miss Her. And again, probably mimed and not too interesting there. But then we get something that is actually live. We get One Last Kiss, which Gary never did on an album or single or anything that I'm aware of. And Gary was about to go off to the Army. This is December of 1966. And Ed Sullivan comes on and talks about Bye Bye Birdie. Ed Sullivan had been the movie version. When Conrad Birdie went overseas for the Army, a girl came and kissed him goodbye. Tonight we have a girl to kiss Gary goodbye, and that sort of thing. And this young girl comes out. She's from Endicott, New York, and Gary sings this song. Again, this one is live. He's not miming to pre-recorded stuff. Give me one last kiss, and of course he kisses this young girl there, and she is very ecstatic, and the girls in the crowd are going absolutely nuts. And hey, if I'd been there in the audience, I'd have been screaming because I'd want to kiss Gary goodbye too. Alright, then we have Main Street from October of 1968. Main Street and this performance on the Ed Sullivan Show was supposed to kind of revitalize Gary, you know, promote this single, be his big comeback song, and it just didn't happen. Again, this recording of Main Street's probably mimed, I would say, most likely. And then last but not least, we have, the CD calls it Greatest Hits Medley. And this is from also December of 66. This is pieces of several of their songs, including what at the time was their newest hit single, Where Will the Words Come From? Still my pick for the group's most underrated song. Pardon the traffic noise. But this is weird because some of the songs are pre-recorded, but like the transitions aren't. So the group is jumping between, you know, miming to the track and then actually performing and back again. It's really odd, but it is a good medley. You can find several interesting Gary Lewis medleys, even just on YouTube. And I'm always a sucker for a good medley. I love it when you mush multiple songs together. So, interesting stuff. These are fun bonus tracks. Yeah, you know, some of them are just the studio recording with little doctoring, but they make for a little fun extra, that sort of thing. So overall, closed cover, excuse me, not closed cover before playing, Rhythm of the Rain plus Hayride, the follow-up to closed cover before playing. A fun album, kind of quirky, kind of different. Had a good time with it though, and we have just 2 records left in our series, And next we'll talk about Gary Lewis Rhythm, the compilation, again from Sunset Records. So that'll be a lot of fun. So I hope you tune in for that. Comment some of your favorite later Gary Lewis or late 60s songs below. And I'll see you next time, my friends. So long!